Hello, and here we are at the beginning of April, and we're in Aberdeenshire, and today we're at Hatton of Ardoyne, Recumbent Stone Circle. And I'm filming at this odd angle because there's a fence just right here that I can't get a really good picture of. So this is a 10 stone circle. It's hardly visited because it's, again, accessible from a B road, a couple of fields away, over a couple of ladder gates, but well worth a visit. It's quite a slab stone, quite a large flanker, and a good number of the stones are still up, although the site is well fenced. The gate to the site is covered in gorse, so it's relatively tricky to have to get over a barbed wire fence. So not particularly accessible, not particularly easy to get to. Got to really want to get here, and again, getting over the fence is a challenge. Rather than getting over the fence, rather than trying to get through that gorse which is over there, which would rip you apart, I think. So let's have a look at the topology then. We'll get into the middle of the circle and look over the recumbent. So this recumbent is pointing southwest slightly. Again, I've got my own views on if this was the true position of this recumbent, and I'll tell you why in a wee while. But we'll look round, again, on quite a rise. Not so much a hill, but a definite kind of rise at the top of. There's a kind of mobile mast in the distance there. Coming round, definitely be able to see this circle from a fair distance. Can't really see much because of that gorse. And then we're coming around to see Benahee in the distance there. So let's have a wee look around. The interesting parts about this circle is that 1795 was the first time it was documented, but not in great detail. It was just mentioned as a Druid stone circle, and then it was excavated in 1840, and the reason is there's these massive curbstones to hold the what would have been pretty substantial cairn in the middle there, and you might be able to see it on the camera. There's a little bit of a depression just about here behind the recumbent stone circle, and one just a little bit there in the middle of the shot there, and that was the excavation. But then most of the cairn had disappeared by that time. Again, cairns are notoriously rare because the stones are nice handy size for building stone dikes, which there's quite a number of round about here. However, the excavations did find an urn. I'm not entirely sure there was much in the urn, although it doesn't seem to, Great Crowns of Stone doesn't mention what that is, but there was some excavations there as well. Round about the early maybe 1910, 1920, believe it or not, there was a stone dike driven right through the centre of the circle for field boundary. Now, why they couldn't have taken it a little bit to the north or to the south, I don't know, but it went right through the middle. And I dare say that stone dike used quite a lot of the cairn, and it was mentioned in Great Crowns of Stone that the recumbent setting was not used as part of the dike, but certainly had stones propped up against it. Now, what that kind of tells me is, with such a significant amount of work to make a dike, literally very little respect for the stone circle. And I can kind of tell, well, my particular kind of viewpoint on this is, if you can see the sort of base of the recumbent, which you can do right underneath it, and you can kind of see the base of the flankers, which you can do, and they're kind of both leaning back, and they're both kind of being propped up. That kind of suggests to me that there's been likely that they've been moved, or during the work they've been kind of like accidentally or intentionally pushed, and then somebody's then leant them back up against this pile of stones at the back here, because that's what it looks like. The recumbent and that number 3 flanker looks to me like it's been propped up and then shored up with some stones, probably from the dike or from the cairn, which kind of then puts me in the mind of, you can never really kind of tell what the alignment was for this. If it is a bit southwestish just now, then there's a fairly good chance that it was maybe more south when the flanker was properly socketed and the recumbent was properly socketed. That's just my personal view. Haven't seen a lot of these, but it would be odd for the current state of both of these stones to be the kind of near original positions, I would think, considering all the work that's went on. I've seen a couple of stone circles where they've been used as almost like quarries, and again, you've got to kind of take the alignment with a pinch of salt. So my personal opinion is these stones have been moved and propped up to their current position. Let's have a wee look at the rest then. So let's have a quick look at this one then. It's a slab. I mean, if this was shaped or picked, it's red granite. It's so flat of a slab. Get up here to have a look at the top to get some kind of idea of the width of it from a hand span. I think it's about 2.5 meters wide, about 2.5 meters, maybe even long, maybe 2.8 high. And again, if it is so far out of its socket that the bottom 25-30% would be embedded and it would be upright normally. So that's stone, well, yes, stone 2. Again, the convention would say that you take a recumbent stone circle, it's the west flanker that's number 1, number 2 is the recumbent, number 3 is the east flanker. There is no west flanker, that's missing. So we start with number 2 and then into number 3. Number 3 is a monster of a red granite stone again. It's lovely and flat fronted. Again, it might be significantly taller than it maybe would originally been if it was properly socketed, but it's currently kind of like 2.8 meters tall. A little bit of shaping or a little bit of chosen for the shape, quite a bit of damage at the top again, which would kind of suggest this has had a fair bit of an active life, unintentionally maybe during the work when the stone dike was getting done. Quite large onto what are categorised as curb stones. Now these are the biggest curb stones I've ever seen. They're massive. Curb stones are usually quite thin and flat, and their intention is to, well, as you guessed, be the curb round the cairn, and the cairn stones are more like kind of smooth boulders, which would then just kind of like roll off and dissipate. So you have a curb to keep them positioned. But these are pretty big. There are a couple of stone circles that have their curb stones go around the cairn and then come in towards the recumbent setting, which this one does. So I think maybe that's why they've been kind of categorised like that. They could have been anything. They could have been circle stones. Apparently there was 12 stones back in back in the kind of early 18th century, but hard to kind of tell because they were kind of like mentioned and then being kind of maybe 12. So they could be circle stones that have been repositioned as part of this dike work that went right through the circle. But it's likely that these are actually maybe curb stones right enough. There is stone 5 in the distance there. And we're at stone 5 in amongst all the gorse. So it's a bit of a chunk of a stone. So clearly stone 4's been popped or broken up. If stone 5 is this kind of size, and again, normally what happens with recumbent stone circles is the flankers are the tallest stones, and they get gradually shorter till they get to the back. So that's stone 5, and along here now there is a little bit of dubiety about where stone 6 is, because again, this is definitely a stone, but it's not really good practice to disturb the moss or any growth on a stone, as invariably what you do is you start to erode the stone by taking away the kind of surface layer. So due to its hardness, that's definitely not a clump of grass, it's a stone. So I'm surmising that's number 6. And then coming along, and according to the sketches, this one line flat here under this bush is number 7. Well, the sketch doesn't even mention these ones, so but it does kind of give a picture of a kind of long stone facing this direction, so that will be 7. Sketch doesn't mention these 2 stones, but mentions this one as number 8. This stone standing here, so this will be the furthest back stone, I guess. So if I'm putting myself right back here against, it's maybe what, 1.5 high, it's taking a fair bit of damage. It's maybe knocked quite a bit, but it is a substantial slab stone on its own. That's number 8, and number 9 lying back from the circle, I would guess, judging by where number 8 is, maybe kind of falling away from it, maybe even falling to it, I'm not sure, but certainly flatted sided, some evidence of right angles again could have been chosen rather than shaped. Quite a substantial stone, number 9. And then number 10 still standing in amongst all this gorse. And again, not going to get into that, but it is a substantial stone. Might have been more than what it is. The top may be missing again, because this is getting close to where the stone dike would have come through. It's just beyond that gorse. So there's number 10, just in the middle of that gorse. I'm on the other side of it now. And this is where the stone dike came through. This is an unnamed stone. It's just shown on the diagram as part of the dike. And the interesting, slightly comical and interesting part is this stone here. So this is an unnamed stone, according to great crowns of stone, but it's an interesting one. It was returned 2002, 2004 something, by a local farmer who clearly had a bit of guilt that his grandfather or great-grandfather had used the stone as part of a barn. And you can see that there's a carved posting, and there's still metalwork, and there's still bolts in the back. Oh, the sockets for the bolts anyway. So they had nicked this stone whenever, used it as part of the barn, carved out and drilled the sockets for the metalwork for a gate post, I guess, and then they clearly got a bit worried about it and returned it. It could have been a circle stone. It could have been, there's a large, where that mast is up the top of the hill, there's a huge outcrop of just natural rock. It could have been just a stone from there they've taken. But yeah, that was an interesting point from this circle. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting circle. It's just a pity it's fairly difficult to get to. That's why I kind of like to kind of do these videos, is not only some people just not likely to be able to get to this part of Scotland or the UK or this part of Europe, but they might not have that accessibility to be able to get to something like this. And it is one of our stone circles. It's one of our recumbent stone circles, rare recumbent stone circles in Aberdeenshire. And yeah, hope you had a nice time looking through this circle with me.